All right, our guest today is a fantastic author who has written many great works, including Murder in a Sundown Town and A Different Track, Hospital Trains of the Second World War. Now, she's here at a perfect time in American culture to promote this particular good read. The Sport of Presidents, The History of U.S. Presidents in Golf examines the relationship between the presidency and the sport and argues through stories that the two naturally go together. The Sport of Presidents is available wherever books are sold, and its author is here today. Alexandra Kitty, thank you for joining the 323.
Thank you for having me, Reid. I'm very, very grateful.
Of course. It's fantastic to have you. And this is when I saw this pop up, like on my list of like upcoming reads, like I thought it was a really fascinating subject and a fascinating story. I mean, it's something that I've seen all my life with the presidency, especially like I grew up on W. Bush, and W. Bush was like the first president I really followed and really grew up on. But I mean, his golf game was crazy, especially like at the worst times. And then obviously, Trump and that golfing presidency was a lot. And I've just seen the connection all my life and like wondered what exactly about the two bring each other together. I guess wheeling and dealing, but we're in the heat of an election year and the country's still cooling off from the first and maybe only debate between Biden and Trump this year, and it featured a memorable exchange.
Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn.
Let's not act like children.
This is obviously a super timely book, so I wanted to know what exactly piqued your interest in the subjects enough in the first place for you to write this.
Well, my base and everything I do is psychology. So I'm always interested in people, what makes people the way they are. And, I'm not hardly the first person to observe that there was something very innate, ingrained in the presidential U.S. president's DNA with golf. I mean, more so than other world leaders. I mean, other world leaders play golf, but it's not done as deftly as U.S. presidents. They have totally taken this sport and not just ingrained it part of the mythos. They have made it so essential that they extended the Oval Office to the green. So I was looking at it, I thought, so many personalities, we have so many distinctive presidents. I mean, no two are even remotely alike. And yet, what do they all have in common except for Jimmy Carter? He was the only non-golfing president in modern times, was golf. So I started to look into, okay, let's look at their personalities, let's look at their policies, their legacies, and then let's look at their golf game. Does the golf game tell us anything new about each president as individuals and as a collective? And I found, that golf game really defines the presidency in such a fascinating way that, you can never tire of golf once you kind of look at it through the eyes of the highest office in the United States. So I started to research, look into past presidents, who did, who didn't, find out during elections. Every time there was an exception for Carter, if there was a golfing candidate and a non-golfing candidate, the golfing candidate won every time except once. So I found that fascinating. I mean, we might even forget in 2016, we might think that Hillary Clinton didn't play golf. She did play golf. She was a golfer as well, but usually it's a golfer against a non-golfer, and the golfer always wins. So that got my interest and on my little escapade of understanding presidency through sport.
That's really wild, and I didn't know that about that. Especially with Carter being like the non-golfer to win. But why do you think the connection is there? What is this massive connection between the presidency and golf? Does it have maybe the I know about business meetings being on the golf course and all these high stress moments being on the golf course and trying to wheel and deal. Is that where this maybe originates?
It didn't actually originate from there, but it soon became obvious in two ways. The president didn't have to be stuck in a stuffy office all the time in meetings. It's much more relaxed. And, every president has, gatekeepers who say to people, you can come into the Oval Office, you were pushing back. But if the person knows how to play golf, they get the president's ear somewhere away from their handlers where they can have a direct talk with the president, and it's not as formal, and they can spend longer periods of time. So one part of the golf, is that it really extends the president's world away from, let's say, the hallowed institutions to somewhere where it's much more relaxed. It's out in the open, fresh air. He's getting fit. He's active. Reporters and cameramen and photographers are going to be there taking pictures. They'll be writing about him. So it's the way to multitask without looking like you're multitasking. I mean, it's one of the most brilliant solutions to, there's only so much of you to go around. How do you expand yourself? And for U.S. presidents, it is golf.
That is a curious, that's a much better way to look at it, I guess, because I used to always, like, I would see people complaining. It was like, oh, this president's, off golfing. They're wasting their time. They're not doing anything. So how have you seen in any research, like, any massive deals struck or anything like that's major that has publicly come out of a golf outing for a president?
Well, the Civil Rights Act was, crafted and actually got passed thanks to Lyndon Johnson, cajoling, the enough votes with the senators and congressmen on the golf course. And he was an atrocious golf player. I mean, when when he held the golf club, it looked like he was trying to kill a rabbit, a gopher on the green. It didn't look like actually he knew how to golf. He was a very lousy golfer, but very astute to getting major legislation through on the golf course. And he was not the only one. Barack Obama took this to a completely different level, where if there was there was a partisan impasse, he would invite, the key players to the golf course. Sometimes it would work out, sometimes it wouldn't. But at least, let's talk. Let's talk on the green. And that's, it's always been, even Bill Clinton, he would make alliances with foreign leaders out on the golf course. I'm from Canada. He has an enduring friendship with our former Prime Minister, Jean Chrétien, and that was cultivated on the golf course. So a lot of things, international affairs, you can think presidents golfing and inviting world leaders, inviting key people, and just, going on and say, let's do business here. But, not to seem so formal. It's a way to disarm people. And a way to make them relax and say, okay, what is it that we need to do? And this is what I need you to do. So it's an utterly unique and brilliant way of doing this without scaring people. When you think of a lot of these deals, people might be afraid if it's in the office, these tense meetings, you're out on the golf course, you're passing, very important and significant legislation, but people feel at ease.
That's fantastic.
When you're doing it.
Absolutely fascinating. Have you had like a personal major interest in golf or in politics or both before this?
Well, I've always had interest in politics, but I used to box. So to me, I wasn't the golfer. But boxing's all about strategy. So it was nice being able to have that scaffolding. Going, okay, is golf about a strategy? Well, yes, it's absolutely, but in a different sort of way. It's not as confrontational. It's not as antagonistic. Chess, art of war, boxing kind of go hand in hand. But golf is much more of a refined, quiet, understated way of doing the same thing.
Very well. We need to get you with our boxing contributor, Jerome, on this too. But so do you think, have you seen other presidents, like golf is obviously like the major one. That's the one that we really look at with presidencies. But Are there other sports that have like really captured? I know with former President Obama, basketball was a big one, but I can see where golf is, really controlled and safe, and like you're not going to get hurt doing it. Basketball, there was a little bit of fear, it could tear something. Who knows what could happen during that? Is there anything that's close to golf with the presidents, or is like golf like that key subject?
It's that key, but there have been presidents who've also played tennis and those who prefer horseback riding. So it's not like, the presidents do one sport, but golf tends to easiest to transform into a political sphere because you can talk while you're golfing. With tennis, you're sort of kind of hitting back and forth, maybe horseback riding also, but then, you have mostly golf. It has over the years kind of gone down to golf where I would say by 1910, journalists were saying, well, of course, as we know, golf is, the pastime of presidents. So by 1910, it was already established that way, but it just got deeper and deeper as it became a world of its own.
The sport of presidents is available anywhere that you get books right now. You need to go get it. I want to ask you obviously this is a major question I feel like you get all the time of like, and we'll dive into it. I know I gave you the requirements earlier for the top golfing presidents, but you brought up a terrible golfing president earlier. Are there any like very funny stories, fascinating stories that you've seen of like terrible golfing presidents and them still being able to work their way around it?
Well, Richard Nixon was not a good golfer. He only did it as vice president in the beginning because of Eisenhower being the golfing president. So he sort of did it begrudgingly. I didn't really want to do it. He did it. He was a terrible golfer. And then when he left office, he needed therapy, sort of a sports therapy, and then he turned to golf. So here's somebody who during the office went kicking and screaming. One early non-golfer was Calvin Coolidge. He really didn't like golf. He made it, but he bought golf clubs. But when he left the presidency, he left his golf clubs in the White House. So there's been presidents who don't like it, but they make their feelings known, but that's rare. Gerald Ford, when he golfed, sometimes he would hit somebody on the head with a, wayward golf ball and make international headlines. But he truly loved the sport, but it didn't help his image of being somewhat klutzy with his wayward golf ball. But it's not bad golfer. A very good golfer was Woodrow Wilson. He was so dedicated to it. He would play golf in the snow and use red golf balls so he could see the ball in the snow as he was playing. So he was very devoted. So there has been so many presidents who've been totally devoted. They might not be great players, but they are good sports about it, which is really nice to see. Well, I don't really like golf, but I'll give it a try. And they get better, and it stays with them even after the presidency. So it's not just, they might have started doing it, well, because this is convenient to conducting business. Once they leave office, they still go golfing.
So let's go into the current field here, right? President Joe Biden, former President Donald Trump, they had a very tense exchange about their golf games during their debate. Between the two, do you think I have not thought of Biden too much as a golfer. Trump, I kind of related almost directly. If we had this argument on the show, that why not just do that for the presidency at this point? Just have a golf game for the presidency, or do like a Olympic style event. They can choose a sport. So if they were to do golf, who wins this matchup in your opinion?
Well, this is actually Biden is a much better golfer than most people realize.
Really?
He underplayed it because he wanted to differentiate himself from Trump, the same way that John F. Kennedy did when he was campaigning against Eisenhower. So there's a lot of times presidents will say, "Well, I don't golf," and they're extremely good golfers. Trump kind of went turbo by owning all these golf courses around. He does everything so big. So, and then you have Biden, who was underplaying it, and Trump, who's really overplaying it. Trump is an extremely good golfer, but I mean, considering how much he can practice and he has his own golf courses, but Trump would tell you he would win. I think it's a lot more closer than most people realize. Biden just kind of recently said, I'm retiring from golfing. But in his heyday, he was, I would say, not quite on par, but almost on par. He would give Trump a run for his money in that department. So it's anybody's guess. But Trump would tell you he would win hands down. And that's that. He's very territorial and very protective of that territory of golf, because he defines himself. That's his brand, is golf.
I want to, before we get you out of here, I want to dive into something that is a big handle on our show, which are top 5 lists. And I think you are the perfect person to handle a top 5 list that we've actually wondered about and debated on the show. So it's great to have you as an expert on this field. We want to dive into the top 5 golfing presidents of all time. We're going to play our very dramatic intro music for that, and we will dive in.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is the 323's Top 5.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Not dramatic at all. Perfectly reasonable. Alexandra Kitty joins us right now. We have her top 5 golfing presidents of all time. Now, this isn't like a top 5 just to, clear it with any of the commenting people. This isn't like, the list of like who she believes the top 5 best presidents are of all time or anything. This is purely on the golf. This is on the golf course. So let's dive into this. If you have that list ready, we'll start you at number 5. Who are the best golfing presidents of all time?
I would say at number 5, it's Barack Obama. He was the first left-handed golf player.
First left-handed golf player. Wow.
Yes.
I always forget. Wait, so is he left-handed? Call for another day. That's funny. I just didn't really think Obama with golf, but maybe I don't know. I guess I just related it to all the other. There's a lot going on during that presidency that golf wouldn't come up. Number 4
would be Dwight D. Eisenhower, since he was the golf president.
Of all these presidents, how do you think, and I guess we'll get closer to number 1. Who could any actually last with some pro golfers, do you think? Or was their game just kind of retired on the side of business good?
Oh no, Harding could go with the best of them. Also, the Franklin Roosevelt during his youth, John Kennedy could go. There were quite a few presidents that were actually good enough that they would be on par with a professional golfer. Both Bushes too. Bush 41 and Bush 43. The Walker Cup in golf, that's based on their own family line. So they would be definitely part and parcel of being on par with the professional golfers.
On par. I see what you did there. I like it. Good job. I like that. Number 3 on the list.
It would be Donald Trump, since he is also an exceptional golfer, but he totally went turbocharged on the mythos of presidents in golf by owning a slew of his own golf courses around the world. He's made that brand something completely unexpected in the presidency.
Number 2 on the list
would be Franklin D. Roosevelt. He couldn't play golf while he was president, but he did help start 300 public golf courses around America. So he actually connected the middle class with the presidency, and that was something very, very generous of him to do.
That's fantastic. I never knew that. So good for him. The number 1 golfing president of all time, according to Alexandra Kitty, is
George Herbert Walker Bush. He was an excellent golfer. It's in his DNA. The Walker Cup is part of his legacy, and he was known as a speed golfer. So he might not have been having the best handicap, but everything else about him just screamed golf.
That's wild. That's very good. Okay, those are the top 5 golfing presidents of all time. So if HW is at number 1, where does his son? Where does W land?
Probably 7 or 8. Very good, but his father was just, nobody could keep up with him, how fast he was at golf.
All right. I mean, it with W in golf, it just like, for some reason with W, I relate it to him more than anybody. Or I guess, well, Trump number 1 on relatability, W number 2, but W especially because of one of my favorite clips that we've never got to present on this show, but we have this opportunity right now.
We must stop the terror. I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
He smashed that thing. Smashing in the face of terror. Alexandra Kitty is the author of The Sport of Presidents. You can find this book wherever books are sold. It's a fantastic read. You need to go ahead and get it. Before I get you out of here, is there any other stories, anything that you learned through all the research here that you found like especially fascinating and that you really want readers to take away when reading this book?
Well, the presidents have taken it so seriously that you've had golf trainers like Max Albin teach multiple presidents through the years. So this is something that presidents don't just do for strategy. They want to get better. They get proper training. They make sure that they get better as they go along. And it's something that, a lot of times after post-presidency, former presidents will golf together. They'll golf with former world leaders. And that it's just something that once, they get bitten by that bug, it's a lifelong passion for them.
That's fantastic. And you know what? It kind of inspires, anytime with these golf things, it inspires me to want to try out golf. So, maybe if I get into it, it's not too late. I might have a future in this whole presidency thing. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. Alexandra Kitty is the author. The book is The Sport of Presidents, The History of U.S. Golf and the Presidency. You need to go get this book. Alexandra Kitty, thank you so much for being here on the show with us. It was fantastic to talk to you, and this is incredible insight, and I can't wait for people to read this and really dive into this, especially in this season.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
Of course. Thank you.